All right, so we're live now, I think. Can you hear me okay? Give me a thumbs up, because I think, are you muted? Oh, hold on here.
Welcome, everyone, to We the Parents podcast for not an episode, but it's just a special announcement update from Mark Ludwig from He's the director of Americans for Equal Shared Parenting. Mark, welcome.
Thanks. Thanks for having me on, Chris. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. I've been trying to get you on, and we'll find some more time another day to do a full-on interview. But you did a Facebook Live yesterday. You were very excited in your home state of Missouri. Where there probably is no better feeling when you can actually make change in your home state. And I wanted you to tell my audience, which is I'm sure some of your audience that sort of bled over, but I do have access to other platforms that I'd like you to share your message on what's going on in Missouri for shared parenting.
Yeah, well, thanks. And first off, I want to apologize. I promise I'm not avoiding you. You've been sending me messages, and I really do plan on. It's just normally I've got a recurring conference call I'm on every Monday night at 7 o'clock St. Louis time.
I get it.
I think next week I'm going to rearrange, either next week or the week after. I'm just going to rearrange that for you because, like I said, you've been working very hard, and I appreciate people. I mean, we all come from different angles, but as you said, everybody reaches a different audience. There's a big crossover that they'll pull from a bunch, but there's people that listen to you that just think I'm the biggest dork in the world. And so you reach a different audience. And so It's important for us to work together occasionally. Mm-hmm. And I promise you, sometime next 2 weeks, I'm going to rearrange my schedule to make it work for you.
I'd love to have you on.
Definitely appreciate the chance today. Yeah, we're pretty excited. And I try to not get overly excited because I've been around the political arena for 35 years now. And I've seen not just on our issue, but on tons of issues, times where you think you've got it, you're running for a touchdown, and then at the last second, something comes up.
Right.
And especially with our issue, it just seems to happen. I think a lot of people aren't familiar with the political arena, but it's worse than what most people hear of. And, you hear of all the slime that takes place, and not to put everybody in the same bucket, because there's some very, very good legislators, especially at the state level across the country. I think at the state level, you tend to get even better quality people who are there to truly make a difference. In Washington, D.C., you don't always get that. And that's on both sides of the aisle, to be honest.
Right.
That the longer so that's why I'm a big advocate for term limits, because I don't care which side of the aisle people are on, the longer they serve, they just seem to be influenced by lobby groups. And I don't know if they intend to early on, but in order to stay in office, it takes money and votes.
Right.
And so in order to get their other issues passed, they need to pacify people. You don't get as much of that as at the state level, but you still do. And unfortunately, our two biggest opponents are the Bar Association and domestic violence groups, both of whom have been heavily entrenched for decades at the state level in all 50 states. So normally what we get people have just become involved in this issue. They've had their kids ripped out of their lives. And in 6 months, a year, 2 years, they're trying to educate themselves on the legislative process and the political process, which they're two different things, though. And but there's just too much. You can't become educated on a part-time basis to reach the level that the Bar Association and the DV groups are at.
Right.
So there's been a lot of frustration because we've been outmaneuvered many times. I've been personally involved in 29 different states now, working with a lot of groups, definitely not me by myself. I don't want people to get the impression that I think I'm the answer to everything. In no way, but everybody has different skills, talents, and expertise. And the goal is to partner with other people where your strength compensates for their weakness and vice versa. Right. And I do have, after 35 years, you tend to learn some things about how to manipulate in the legislative process. So we've been working in Missouri for going on 7 years now. We're very fortunate. In 2016, we passed To my knowledge, the first facts, findings, and conclusions bill, as far as a solid one across the country, which swung the pendulum in the direction we wanted, just not as far as we wanted, not even close.
Right.
But at least we had the ball. At least we intercepted the ball and we were headed in the right direction. And in Missouri, we've had 3 years in a row where oddball stuff that had nothing to do with shared parenting derailed us. The 1 year we had the impeachment of a governor and nothing was getting through. Another year we had infighting we have a super majority of Republicans in the Senate in Missouri, well, in both chambers, to be honest, but there was infighting between those two groups, and same thing, everything stalled. And then last year we had COVID. So 3 years in a row that I believe we would have passed if it had been a normal session, and we just got derailed. So this year we filed multiple bills, actually, 2 bills in the House and 2 bills in the Senate, which gives us more opportunities to try and get things done. And I don't have time in 15 minutes to go through the full strategy of why we did that. But to give you the 30,000 foot view, the 2 bills in the Senate, and the Senate is the chamber that's the hardest, because in Missouri, according to our filibuster rules, 1 senator can totally kill a bill. So it doesn't matter what the vote count is, 1 senator can derail everything in our Missouri Senate. Right. So that doesn't happen in the House, which we've been very good in the House anyway. Last year, we passed the House 130-19. I mean, every year we've had overwhelming votes in the House. So the strategy this year was, well, let's hurry and get it through the Senate, because in case something happens again, we don't want to waste the time getting it through the House, then get to the senior chamber and realize the sand ran through the hourglass and the clock ran out. We didn't get our bill passed. Mm-hmm. So we ran both bills in the Senate, which is unheard of, to get 2 bills, to get committee hearings, to get passed in the committee and get to the floor. We had the 1 bill. The first bill is one that combines alimony and maintenance of divorce with shared parenting. And the reason we went with that strategy is in Florida, they used that strategy very effective 2 years ago. It passed by an overwhelming majority in the House and the Senate. Unfortunately, Governor Scott vetoed the bill. But there's a lot more money and a lot more support for the maintenance and alimony portion of a bill than there is in shared parenting. In shared parenting, we're all broke. We all spend every penny we had on our attorneys. We don't have money. And whether it's right or wrong, it takes money to get legislation passed to be able to have the money to raise awareness for a cause. Mm-hmm. And we just don't have the money. But the maintenance and alimony people do. You know, if somebody gets a divorce and they're worth $20-30 million and don't have kids, they're not going to donate to shared parenting. And shared parenting doesn't affect them because they have the money to buy an attorney. Sure. But it does affect their maintenance and alimony for the rest of their life, depending on what state they're in. So people are willing to donate for that portion. So we filed 1 bill that way. And then a separate bill, which is sort of the gold standard, if you will, of a shared parenting bill. It doesn't have any loopholes for allegations where somebody can drum up a charge and all of a sudden the rebuttable presumption is thrown out. It also moves up the timetable for temporary hearings. And that's very important because, as we all know, you go in a custody battle and you get delayed. You know, you show up for court, they go back in the chambers, the 2 attorneys and the judge, they have a cup of coffee, eat a donut, send you a bill for $800 for 1 day at court, and nothing happened. They just say, oh, we're getting back together in another 2 months. Yep, I had that happen to me. And then, by the time you get to trial, they say, well, the child's already used to only getting, X amount of time, so let's just stick with that. So Jeff Roberts and Jeremy Miller did a great job of helping to craft this piece of legislation in such a way that temporary orders are moved up dramatically. So it's a very good bill. Now, ironically, we were able to get both. I don't know how this happened. Someday when I'm allowed to, I'll tell you some of the maneuvering that goes on behind the scenes. Sure. But both bills were able to get a committee hearing, and both bills were put on in Missouri. We have what we call executive session. In most states across the country, they have a committee hearing, they vote on the bill, the same hearing, and then it gets, can move to the floor. In Missouri, doesn't happen that way. It has to wait until at least the next week sometimes 2, 3, 4 weeks down the road, they'll have what they call executive session after a hearing, and only the people on the committee can talk amongst themselves. Nobody else can give input. And a lot of times that's where a bill dies. They'll have the hearing just for basically show to make it look like they're addressing our concerns, knowing full well they're not going to get an executive session on it and the bill's going to die. And they try to, the Bar Association's happy because the bill got killed. They try to appease us, making it look like they tried, but it got killed in committee.
Sure.
And the big fear was at 4 o'clock today, our spring break happens. So if it doesn't happen by spring break, there's still a slim chance it could have gone on. But I would say 80% of all bills, if they don't make it by spring break through the Senate, they're not going anywhere. And 4 o'clock today was the deadline. So yesterday we had our executive session. And at first it looked like they weren't going to have it. They were going through the regular committee hearing. And the chairman said, we're running out of time. There's not going to be any executive session today. So all the bills that were on executive session are going to be moved till our next meeting, which means after spring break. So I'm sitting there texting all the members of the committee. We need that now. We need that now. And you keep hearing these interruptions where people are whispering to the chair. And he says, well, we're going to go ahead and do a vote on 2 bills here today, even though we only have a couple of minutes left. So they rushed to. And we got a 5-1 vote. We already knew we had the votes. There's only one opponent. So very exciting. We still have a long way to go. It's not like it's a done deal. But for people who understand political maneuvering, this was huge in Missouri to get the Senate to give 2 bills passage in the committee and recommendations to the floor before spring break. And a matter of fact, one of them has already been put on the formal calendar. I believe the other one will be. I don't know how I know that, before today. But that's huge for them to be put on the formal calendar before the close of spring break. So I can't guarantee anything. We still have a way to go down the field. But at this point, the biggest hurdles, there's only one bigger hurdle, is the floor. And the risk of a filibuster gets bigger the closer you wait till the end of session. Mm-hmm. We're only halfway in Missouri. So we're not even near the close of session. So the risk of filibuster is much smaller than it's ever been in Missouri. So if this happens, this can help a lot of states. Kentucky passed a great bill a couple of years ago. The meat of the bill was very good. And I think it sent a message to judges in Kentucky. Unfortunately, there was a slight little loophole that was added that allowed for, if an order of protection is in the process of being filed, the rebuttable presumption shall not apply. Mm-hmm. So I think it was a good bill. And as I always say, there's never great bills and horrible bills. You're always trying to pass one and then add to that with the next state and add to that with the next state. And I think Missouri's going to add the next level. There's still going to be other states that will be able to take even ours and grow, because ours has the standard of evidence is preponderance of evidence. We still need someday another state to take ours one step farther to clear and convincing evidence. Right. So, like I said, this isn't going to be a perfect bill, but it's a darn rock solid bill if we can get this thing to pass. So I'm just excited as the dickens. Ironically, I mentioned that we had 2 bills in the House, 2 in the Senate. The one in the House did pass that committee last night too. But to be honest, that's just basically going to be for show. The bills that are going to be coming across will be in the senior chamber. Sure.
Just for the next 2 minutes before, because I know you got to go.
I can go a little longer if you've got some questions you're thinking of.
Yeah, explain to the audience what an ideal perfect. So we know from experience all the situations that we run into. So what would the perfect, you say the golden bill, even better than the one that you have? What sort of language, if you were speaking to legislators right now in every state, what are the things that need to be covered so that we can protect the interest of both parents and the children as far as all the issues that we've run into over the last few decades?
Yeah, great question. I think you've got to have the words rebuttable presumption, because you can't just have a presumption without something. Otherwise, they're going to claim, well, there's no judicial discretion, because there are some situations that aren't conducive to an equal shared parenting. Unfortunately, our opposition always tries to take the one. I don't know if you saw the hearing in Pennsylvania a year ago where the opposition used some wackadoo situation where the ex went over with a chainsaw and cut up the mother and then cut up the kids.
Oh.
And I'm like, okay, how often does that happen? Are we going to pass legislation for one wackadoo with a chainsaw?
Right. You can't stop crazy with laws because crazy still does crazy.
Yeah. So you know, there's gonna be a rebuttable presumption. There's some things in there that have to be addressed. So you have to have a rebuttable presumption. You need what we call determining factors. So you know, somehow you have to be able to justify: is someone fit, willing, or able? Does someone have a proven, and that's the key, is not an allegation, but a proven history of actual abuse. And once again, is it abuse for the children, or domestic abuse against the ex-spouse? And
or a difference in parenting style.
Yeah, in no way am I for abuse of an ex-spouse, but how you and your ex-spouse get along has nothing to do with how you and your child get along.
Correct.
We need to make sure that we look at the standard, and that's the second thing. Is the standard going to be an allegation, a preponderance, or clear and convincing?
Right.
We don't want somebody to just be able to throw out an allegation, which is what most states have right now. Every state pretty much. You can throw out an allegation and you're not going to get much custody at all.
Right.
So mere allegation is there an allegation of one incident, an allegation or a history? Is there a preponderance or clear and convincing? And right now we have preponderance, which basically means 51%. So that basically says, is there a high probability that this person is fit, willing, and able? Or is there a high probability that abuse occurred, which takes it to a new level? Clear and convincing is where it needs to be. Because before you rip a parent out of a child's life, you better allow some pretty hard evidence, from the child's perspective. So that still needs to be done. And then the last thing is what we did in Missouri. We kind of did it in reverse in 2016 with our facts, findings, and conclusions. You have to force the judge to give written facts and findings at how they arrived at their conclusion. Otherwise, a judge can say, well, yeah, I looked at all the evidence and this is my ruling. But you can't appeal that type of a case.
Sure.
So we need to make sure that we have facts, findings, and conclusions in all the bills down the road. And then I like what Jeff and Jeremy did with these temporary orders, because that sets the stage so they can't drag a hearing on for a year, or in some states 2 years or longer, and say, well, the child's already used to this type of schedule, so we'll just keep going with that schedule.
The child's totally used to this abuse, so let's just keep it going.
Yeah, so we need to tighten that schedule quite a bit.
What do we do? So it sounds like we have a lot of points in the bill for prevention. Now, what about the protections after the fact? So in my instance, in many instances, in your instance, you've gone years with high conflict, false allegations, all of this. Are we looking to still protect the best interest of the child, or a 50-50 moving forward, even after years of allegations, calling law enforcement, judicial abuse, all of this? Are we focused on anything that has to do with this parent could be emotionally or mentally unhealthy?
Great question. And there's a bunch of other, what I call satellite type bills. In Missouri, we're not talking a lot about it because we don't want distraction from our 50-50 bill, but we do have a GAL bill that's filed right now to address guardian ad litem abuse.
Right.
And, you've been reading, I don't know if you've read or not, but it's been all over Missouri. There's been an 8-part series by PJ Media on the St. Louis family court system and the abuses of guardian ad litems. It just came out this month, which was perfect timing for us.
Yeah.
So guardian ad litem bills, parental alienation and false allegations is another thing that needs to be addressed, but you need to be careful. I always recommend for a state to try and get 50-50 laws passed first, and then come in with the false allegations, or parental alienation second, just because it's going to be very hard to get 50-50 passed if we're addressing the other issue first.
Right.
There are a couple of states, and gosh, I don't know. There's so many bills filed this year. I'm losing track, but I think,
Which is good.
yeah, I'm thinking Texas is a bill. So one of the states filed a false allegation bill within the last 2 weeks. Now, Texas does have, by the way, their bill 803, which is waiting for a committee hearing right now. And I'll tell you what, that Texas group has done a dynamite job.
Yeah.
They got their equal shared parenting on the Republican platform.
That's
now,
great.
you as a libertarian know that libertarians already support us. And
Sure.
if I was going to be a different party, it would be a libertarian.
Well, here's the thing with libertarians is as you speak to libertarians as individuals, oh, of course they do. It's principled, but to get the party, and that's what my work is as an advocate and a libertarian is, and Cass Jackson and Adam Kokesh and Larry Sharp and Spike Cohen, who was the vice presidential candidate. These are gentlemen that are high profile within the party. I want the Libertarian Party putting the pressure on Republicans and Democrats to make this a forefront issue as well.
Well, that's why I said that Texas group did a great job of, when that's on the state party platform, if you're a Republican, you're basically saying you don't agree with your own platform if you don't vote for it. So it was a genius strategy on their part. One of my mentors, Phyllis Schlafly, who I was very fortunate, she was based here in St. Louis, and I'm a part of the Eagle Council that Ed Martin took over the legacy of the Phyllis Schlafly Eagles. But, Phyllis was a genius of getting her issues on state party platforms. And that's how she got a lot of her legislation passed. And like I said, the Republican Party or the group in Texas did a great job of getting that on the Republican Party platform. Yeah, so that's another thing that people, and once again, everybody has different skills, talents, and abilities. Mine tend to be more the legislative arena, trying to get legislation passed, but getting that on the party platform is another one. Judicial accountability is another one. Parental alienation. So I always tell people, don't feel compelled to do everything, because if you try and do everything, nothing will get done.
Right.
Try and find an area that resonates with you and say, you know what, this is where I think I fit into the shared parenting community, and really focus on that, and then work together and partner with other people that are better at the other areas.
And like, as when you're going through this, you're so emotional. Even when we first met, I mean, I was on fire. I was like, Mark, we're going to fix this. And you were like, this is going to take a while, Chris. I'm like, I don't believe you, sir. You're not loud enough. Let me talk. And we had to work that out, and I had to find my niche.
And everybody goes through that. That's why I always caution everybody, if you can, wait 6 months to a year before you truly pick your niche. And that's what I did. I spent a year studying the lay of the land before I ever started doing any Facebook Lives, before I ever started getting involved. I was involved, on our bill in Missouri. But as far as publicly, I went in to understand what groups are out there, what are their strengths, what are their weaknesses, and where's the gaps that my skills, talents, and abilities would fill in. And I literally spent an entire year before I ever did my first Facebook Live. And I think most people, their intention is well. They mean well. They're ticked off. Their kid's been ripped out. Somebody needs to make a change. The challenge is they're trying to run out on the field without understanding what the plays are and who the opposition is. Right. And so you got to love people through that the same way I did with you. It's frustrating at times, but you'll go through it too. You're going to see the newbies come on this year, and you're going to go, oh my gosh, they're just like I was.
Yeah, I mean, they approach me all the time, and I have to, I give them a little bit of attention, but they're, at the end of the day, it's like, okay, I figured out what I need to be doing, and they have to do that as well.
I think most people, like I said, just are not going to be effective or efficient until about 18 months into it. Yeah. And the hard part is, in a polite way, letting them know that. But it's just like anything else in life. If you want to be a plumber or an electrician, you've got to, be an apprentice first. You've got to learn, some of the basics. If you're going to be a doctor, you've got to go to medical school first. You've got to have some education. So I probably do. I've got to. I get a bonus like Levi's mother's taking him, which I won't get into details. But for 11 days, he's going to be in Florida starting tomorrow. And so I get a night tonight. So I want to make sure that I
Beautiful.
soak it all in. That
Absolutely. I get it. Thank you for coming on. Thank you for sharing what's going on. And we'll speak later and figure out for a time for you to come on for a full episode with Mark Ludwig, of Director of Americans for Equal Shared Parenting. And thank you for the update in Missouri.
All right. Thanks again for everything you do, Chris. I sure appreciate you.
All right, Mark. We'll talk soon.
All right.